everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Around the Ballpark podcast. And I am excited today. My name is Mike Redman, and I am the host along with my co-host Darren Redman. And today we have Tony, the baseball road tripper, on with us today. Very excited to talk about those road trips that he might have been on along the way over the years, and just to talk some baseball. I mean, we are just about 30 days away from opening day, and I just can't get enough of baseball at the moment. I've watched Sandlot 3 times. I've watched Rookie of the Year twice, as many spring training games they can. Let's go. Let's get into this. So, Tony, thanks for being on. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, where you're from, and just kind of a little bit about what your experiences early on with attending some of the ballparks.
Yeah, my name is Tony Voda, and like you guys said, on YouTube, I am Baseball Road Tripper, and that's kind of my MO. Started back in, I think, around about 2009, started going to some baseball games, and I really wanted to see what outdoor baseball games were like, because at that point I had only gone to Twins games. I am from the Minneapolis area, and they were all indoors at the Metrodome. So first started by going over to Milwaukee, saw a game there, and the retractable roof kind of made me feel a little bit more at home. The next game was Wrigley Field, and when you can see that sunshine, and when it was only about 70 degrees, but you're still frying in the bleachers out there, I was hooked. So ever since then, I've gone to every Major League Baseball park and a few of the kind of special venues like Mexico City and Field of Dreams. So,
You did do the Field of Dreams. That's
yep.
amazing. Yeah. And I think this year they're doing a game in, I think it's Korea. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some buddies that are going. I wanted to do that trip, but it sounds like getting tickets is next to impossible. You basically have to be Korean. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was that last ballpark that you went to basically complete that set of the actual clubs?
It's kind of a weird one. So the big thing that I wanted to do was catch a baseball at every major league ballpark,
Ooh,
and
I like that.
it's the last one was one that I had already been to, but didn't do it when I was trying to catch baseballs. So my final one where I caught a baseball was Fenway, and I mean, you can't get much more magical. You can't get more historic than that, at least currently. I know the Ebbets Field behind you, that would be, if I could go back in time, that might be one of them that I want to catch a ball at. But
yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I lived for the last 16 years in California, so attended a lot of the games there. Shame on me, I did not get to Candlestick before it was torn down, and I wanted to, and I had a chance to go and be for an exhibition soccer game, and I happen to like soccer as well. And I just logistically, I wasn't able to do it, and I wasn't able to go. But I have a partial season ticket plan to Fenway. So,
okay.
And I went to Fenway for the first time last July. It is magic.
Yeah.
It just is.
And
so,
I have to know, just because, so myself, I live in Florida. I'm a Mets fan, but so living here in Florida, the team that's closest is Tampa Bay, Tropicana Field, and then we have Miami. They're both about 3 hours away equally. What was your first, and I'll be honest, your first thoughts when you're driving up to Tropicana Field and you see the Leaning Tower of Pizza Stadium, basically just that eyesore that it is? Like, were you like, did you kind of know that going into it, or like when you saw it, you're like, wow, okay, or
It's weird because, like I said, I grew up going to Metrodome games here in the Twin Cities, so it kind of felt like I was coming back home in a strange way, just seeing the dome, seeing it kind of, like you said, it's not world class, but it felt kind of near and dear to my heart. The one thing, especially about Tampa, that was really strange is it's not like it's downtown. It's not like it's surrounded by a lot of stuff. So
Right.
that was what was really odd to me, because it's like there's a baseball park here, and then you're like, oh, that's it. So yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty
Tampa's
much it.
unique.
Yeah, and one thing I found out, I thought it was a joke, but I don't know if it's still a thing. But 2 years ago, if you had, and parking's, $20 for parking's cheap compared to most places, but they have a thing at Tropicana where if you have 6 or more people in your vehicle, you get free parking. I guess it's some sort of way to I don't know, have less cars in the lot. I don't know. And so we gave it a shot, and we picked up some random person, and it worked. This was many years ago. I'm talking over 10 years ago. So I don't know if it's still a thing, but I was just like, oh, wow, that's crazy. But once you get in there, though, it is first class. Yes, there's some things that could be better off, but once you're in there, it's a completely different experience from when you're driving up to it. So we don't want to judge a book by its cover. Once you get in, it's good to go. But yeah, so definitely. I guess my next question for you. So in terms of road trips and seeing all the stadiums, seeing multiple stadiums in one day, that has to be something that I'm sure you've done at least once. For me, it was got to go to Citi Field for an afternoon game and go to Yankee Stadium in the evening. And to me, that was as good as it can be. But I'm sure you have something you'd like to share that probably tops that just a little bit. So I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, kind of going back to that Fenway talk. Back in, I think, 2022, I had an idea for well over a decade that I really wanted to go to 2 ballparks in one day, but as far as I could go, and had done some research and kind of figured out, okay, it seems possible to do both coasts, but at that point, I was still scared of flying. So I didn't think that I could actually pull this off. But I had worked with my buddies since about 2016 at getting better at flying, doing some other trips. And then I pulled the trigger and did Fenway Park in the morning for their Boston Marathon game. And then flew after about 6.5 innings, left the game, flew to Dodger Stadium and saw the last 6.5 innings at Dodger Stadium. So
you win. That is awesome. You pulled the Phil Collins of Live Aid. Remember, he performed in England and he performed at RFK Stadium. And Tony Voda did the same thing. The road tripper, unbelievable. You're the first. Seriously, I mean, I'm just flabbergasted that you did that. That is awesome. I love that.
Logistically, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, because the whole time when you're flying, you're like, what can go wrong? Is there going to be a delay? But I mean, it was meant to be. It was perfect. And
2 iconic stadiums. I mean,
right,
unbelievable.
Probably the most iconic on both coasts.
100%.
I still am partial to, I like San Francisco's a little bit more than Dodger.
18, which that's just, we'll spill the tea, as the kids say.
Yeah.
AT&T, I'll call it AT&T. I forget what it's called now. Well, I don't know what it's called, but it is gorgeous. If you're gonna see a game, it is gorgeous. And do yourself a favor, people. Sit in Triples Alley, because you got some food stuff. You got that cable car, beautiful view of the bay. Am I lying? It's gorgeous.
Yes. Anytime that you can incorporate water with a ballpark, that's how you get me. And I would say, especially with Minneapolis, land of 10,000 lakes, I think the one knock against Target Field, if I'm gonna be honest with you and kind of maybe throw it out to the universe here, I wish that they would have incorporated some aspect of water at Target Field.
Great point. That's a good poll. That is a good poll. Before, I want to ask how you started this journey of yours. I have a weird question I always want to ask somebody, because those Twins teams were great that won those championships, but that right field wall that covered those seats that extended out for football, was that plastic? It certainly looked like plastic. What was it? It looked like saran wrap. I don't know. What was that?
It essentially basically was like a really thick saran wrap. It was, we called it the baggie. So
yes. That had to dent a ball right off the wall.
Yeah, it was such a weird. I don't know how you would play off of that, because, like you said, it just deadens the ball. It's such, but at the same time, like growing up, when that's the field that you see, it kind of just becomes normal. And also going to a game and seeing guys get balls lost in the dome and stuff like that, it's like, oh, that's that's not a normal aspect of a baseball game.
Right. Yeah, agreed. So, and Michael, if I may ask our guest, Tony, how did you like one day? I want to go to ballparks. So I want to be the road tripper. How does that genesis? How does it organically develop?
Ooh, good question. The first inkling that I had of it was probably back in junior high. Went down to visit my grandparents, who at the time were living in Texas, and we drove by Arlington, the new ballpark down there, and well, now the
The new
closed.
old ballpark. Yeah,
Yes, yep.
right.
And I was just like, that looks so cool. Like there's an MLB stadium that isn't my hometown that like is right there. And kind of stuck in my mind. And I even was asking my grandparents and my dad, I'm like, can we go to a game maybe? And I mean, they lived about 2.5 hours away from there. So we didn't that time, but it's kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And at that point, I was still playing baseball too and stuff like that. So I had the love of the game. Um, Went through college and kind of went through a downfall with the game. Some people kind of fall out of love where they find other
Right.
things to get into.
Mhm.
But then with the opening of Target Field, it was like, hey, there's a new ballpark here. And if I'm going to see new ballparks, it's been in the back of my head that I want to see the other ones. And I made some other friends that had done it too. So it was just at that point, if they can do it, I can do it. So, and I don't do anything half measured. And at that point, within about 10 years, I picked them all up.
So without giving away any what I call industry secrets, I mean, how do you do that where, okay, it can get very pricey, very expensive. You don't want to do totally on the cheap either, because then you can't enjoy the experience. It takes a lot of planning, right? People think you can't just go.
Yep. Yep.
Walk us
Um,
through that.
I would say my background, I work in the insurance industry, and um, I don't do sales or anything like that. So I'm more on the back end, and I really love using spreadsheets. So spreadsheets are really good for planning road trips too, at least in my mind. So I just basically keep a rolling spreadsheet of, hey, these are some of the stadiums that I want to see. These are kind of close together, so maybe I can do these three ballparks or whatever. And then I kind of line up, okay, these are when the teams are all in town. So it's maybe 2 or 3 weeks out of the year that I could hit this. Okay, I have this planned out. It could be these 3 days or it could be these 5 days. And what makes the most sense, then cross-referencing that against airline prices. And before you know it, it's like, okay, this is the cheapest. This is how many days it would take. Pull the trigger.
And I love that because I'm the exact same way in terms of spreadsheet guy. Like I overthink. I always have to like analyze everything, and so it, I'm not that kind of person where you could just ask a question like, "Oh, which team you want to see first?" And I would have to like if I was to do that, I would have spreadsheet among spreadsheet. I would do the same thing because I
Yes.
want it to make sense. Like I want to get like Darren, like you mentioned, like I don't want to just sit on the rooftop just to say I went to a stadium. I want to go and so make the most of the trip. Do I see a whole series? Do I just see one game? So like, for example, let's just say like a Petco Park or what, okay, I'm just going there for one game. Um, you get there early for some batting practice, you stay to the end, or what's kind of your thought process? Like, okay, I only got one day to hit this stadium that I haven't been to before. How do you approach that?
Yeah, what's your protocol? Great
Yeah.
question.
And that is a good question. If I kind of prop it up here a little bit, you can see I have a few more baseballs up there.
Wow.
So the other part that I forgot to say is when I'm looking at these, I also look at what teams are using special baseballs for the year. And I'm glad that you said Petco, because this year is the 20th anniversary of Petco, and they're actually using a special ball. So that's actually on my list. So what I do is basically I'll try to figure out games that are going to be lower attendance, or if my twins are in town, since I know some of the guys and I have some hookups, that if I say,
Good.
hey, they're using a baseball, can you maybe help me? And
Mhm.
they'll be nice to that. So I have one kind of on my radar that, oh, the twins are playing there on a Monday in San Diego. that should be lower attendance. And then when I get there, like you said, go there early for batting practice, take in as much as you can. I'll try to splurge and get a good seat, and I'll stay in that for the majority of the time. But then a couple innings, I'll just kind of walk around and be able to take it up from the third level or see other views in the stadium and kind of feel like I got all that I can out of the stadium while also capitalizing on splurging because I'm there just once every 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and you kind of have to, because you don't want to you don't want to just sit in your seat the whole time. Like if it is a full house, then you're not going to be able to just jump from your seat to left field to right field to upper deck to lower. But not a lot of people there. Then you can kind of make your way down. You can kind of see it from all different angles. So that's the best way to really. I love that. It's the best way to experience more of the parks. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck where you're at. So
yep.
And because so if I'm correct too, typically the home team will they do hit first like in batting practice, or do they let the road team go first?
Yep. The home team will hit first, and unfortunately with gate times and just kind of the way that MLB has kind of gone now, a lot of these places don't open up early enough to see the home team take BP, and if they do, it's usually for season ticket holders. The season ticket holders usually get in 30 minutes before the regular crowd. So it's a little bit unfortunate. If I was in charge of the league, I might try to say, hey, like, you have your stars on the field at this point. Even if we don't allow people access to hound them for autographs every game, just getting people in the doors to see an Aaron Judge take batting practice, or to see those guys, like some of the shots that they're hitting, you might not actually see them do that during the game because not every game they're hitting a home run, but you can guarantee that during batting practice, these guys are hitting them. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an experience. And not to mention, like, if I'm marketing that stadium, like, you're going to sell more popcorn, you're going to sell more Dippin' Dots and Cracker Jacks and everything if they're there for 2 hours longer, absolutely. Because I know sometimes, and I think it also depends on, because sometimes, before a game, they're not going to have batting practice today. Sometimes they do. You just kind of never know. But yeah, typically you do get to see the road team if you're lucky enough. Just kind of depends. But if you're just buying a ticket for one day, it's probably less likely that you're going to see as much, I imagine. So, but you were saying, you don't have to name names or anything like that, you'd mentioned that you have some contact, some of the teams. So having gone to some of these stadiums, are there's some with some players that you have a good rapport with here and there, maybe a bullpen catcher here, maybe a pitching coach there that, are pretty, because it seems like a lot of the guys, you talk to them, they'll talk back and share a little bit about that, if you would mind.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And honestly, like, kind of like what you guys said, like, oh, there's secret trades and stuff like I'm an open book. And I've even told people that reach out to me, they want to know, hey, who's the best guy on the team to ask for a baseball or an autograph, or who's the nicest guy to just maybe talk to, because I want to be able to say that I talked to a pro guy. The one guy that I really like on the Twins that's a coach is Tommy Watkins. He has been nothing but amazing to me and my friends, and especially seeing him on the road, it's really cool. I know that the Astros get a lot of hate because of past issues, shall we say, but they have one of the nicest guys in all of Major League Baseball in their bullpen, Javier Bracamonte. He is. I'm pretty sure every game that I've gone to that the Astros are there, even in the playoffs when they were here in Minnesota, the guy is throwing baseballs into the crowd, and not just that, but actually playing catch with the kids.
How great is that?
Like that's a core memory for those kids. And
it is. And so many players, unfortunately, I'll relate that to, when you're dating and you hear those infamous words like, oh, I'll call you, you're not going to get a phone call. Same thing at the field when it's like, oh, I'll get you. Well, just come to the gate after the game. I'll hook you up. You're never going to see that player ever again the rest of the night. So I just wish they could be a little bit more
like that
upfront. Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
So you can, when someone's bluffing or if they're really going to do it or not. But
Yep.
Batting practice, there's really no reason to be off-putting to a fan for that, unless they're being obnoxious or something.
Agreed.
So,
and honestly, the Twins have been really nice with that. I've befriended some of them, a lot of them now former Twins, but the first guy that I really developed that rapport with was former Twin Trevor Plouffe. He's now with John Boy Media. He would spot me at games. He, over the years, had given me bats. One time when I went down to Tampa when he was playing with them towards the end of his career, he ended up hooking me up with one of his fielding gloves. And
great.
it was just one of those things where I'm like, is this real life? Another guy is Eduardo Escobar. He's been super nice. Just, I mean, fan friendly, always a smile. And Miguel Sano is another one. He's been really nice, and it's really cool to feel like there is that Minnesota way. There is that hospitality that all those guys.
And I'm a big fan of the Minnesota way. And, we are anchored at the PSF app. Sean Salisbury, former, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And, I mean, he went to USC, but Minnesota way, if you know what I'm trying to say. He's just a wonderful man, and wonderful things, says wonderful things about Minnesota. So I am sure that every stadium has its little quirks in a good way. Everyone is fine. If you could share which one might have disappointed you, could have been an off day, and which one surprised you to the positive. I'll go first. How's that? Just so you.
Yeah.
So the one that wasn't negative was wonderful, but when I went to Banquet Ballpark in Arizona, it just felt like it was so quiet. It was just, there wasn't a lot of people there. Don't get me wrong. It was a Met Diamondback game, and it was just.
I'm sorry.
It was just very quiet, and it felt like I was in an aircraft carrier. I felt like I was in and just where you keep aircrafts. It's aesthetically not so pleasing. But in terms of Wild, first time going to Fenway and Wrigley Field, I'm sorry. I thought those would be great, and they were great. But AT&T, you mentioned, is the prettiest ballpark I've ever been to, by far. So if you can share which ones you thought, again, didn't mean they're bad ballparks.
Yep. I think that there's two that kind of, like you said with Arizona, that just fell flat. And the first one that I thought of was actually Yankee Stadium, the new one, just because it's nice. You can tell that they spent a lot of money, but it's so ostentatious. It's so like just it doesn't have that heart that I was really wanting out of old Yankee Stadium. And it's also a little bit like they beat up on my Twins, so it's not. I don't have a good view of the Yankees to begin with, but I've since made some friends that are Yankee fans, but I'm gonna have to give it another try. But there's just something about losing that special, like when you try to replicate a stadium.
Yes, you can't unscramble an egg. You just gotta do something else.
Yep. So it's like either go fully new or keep the old one there and remodel it. And I think maybe that happened a little bit too with my other one was new Comiskey, which you guaranteed rates in Chicago. It's they have so much history there. They have so much in the team history, but when you're walking around the ballpark, you don't get a lot of it. You'll have a couple statues here and there, but with that deep of history, I want to see more of the players in the concourses. I want to see more of these action shots. I want to feel like I'm at a baseball park and not just like an architecture place. Like,
makes total sense. Yeah.
Yep.
I get it. I mean, a place that I did not put on a list, it just says a one-off. They don't play baseball there anymore. I went to, I believe it was 1981. I went to the All-Star game in Montreal, Olympic Stadium. that was like, it's for me a joy, just because you knew that, man, I'm in Canada. And then I want to ask you about Mexico. What was it like seeing the game in Mexico City? That had to be wild.
Yeah, and you talk about these exceeding expectations. I think that like you to kind of go back and derail it just a little bit, like Fenway exceeded expectations, even though the expectations were insanely high.
Right.
But then also like Field of Dreams, I had never even seen that before, and I'm only a state away.
Right.
Seeing that still exceeded expectations. And then Mexico City, I had a friend down there who actually helped me get the tickets and all of that, and he's from Mexico City area. But he had kind of shown me all these pictures, and it looked gorgeous from like some of the drone shots that he had. But being there, especially at sunset that first night, it was just
beautiful.
incredible. And that altitude, seeing guys in batting practice, like I mean, and that first game, what was it like?
Oh yeah, they got a
13
show.
or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was a
Padres-Giants, I
gong
think,
show in a
right?
good way. It was
Yep.
unbelievable.
Just you're just like watching all these home runs, and you're like, this is incredible.
And if I'm not mistaken, same thing happened at the Field of Dreams with the Yankees and the White Sox. It was a very high scoring game as
Yeah.
well.
With a
Yep.
walk-off home run.
Yep. And that's the other thing too, is that like I feel like I got so spoiled seeing some of these iconic games, and not just that it was, like you said, not just that it was Field of Dreams, but it was the first time and it was a walk-off, and
Yep.
just like
And the Yankees lost.
yeah, yep. I mean,
let's face it, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And growing up, my favorite player was Robin Ventura, so I was a White Sox fan for a long time. So
Yeah.
I still
I love Robin Ventura. You know, he played wonderful for the Mets. He had the Grand Slam single. You know,
Yep.
if you remember that.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, that guy, he could hit grand slams.
Oh no, that he was close to the record for quite a while.
Yep.
Michael, what are your favorite? And you're like,
So I'm going to echo the. Unfortunately, I've only been to 6 parks, but I'm going to echo Yankee Stadium as the one I was very meh. Like I was
Right.
I was going into that like, oh, I'm excited to go to go to City Field because what it is. But man, I can't wait to get. And fortunately I had been to the old Yankee Stadium, and there was just an essence about it. And this was more of a library and a museum, and the worst parts of both. Like it was still great to be there, but it just didn't have. I wasn't vibing with it.
it wasn't organic.
It wasn't organic. And then $17 for popcorn and $27 for a Philly cheesesteak. I was like, I can't put up with that. But that one would stand out to me. And then as far as if I had to pick one that surprised me, I'm gonna say I'm not even gonna go Major League Park. This is random because we're talking about ballparks, but Bradenton, for where the Pirates have their spring training. That one really just they got it. To go to a night game there, the boardwalk all the way across in the outfield. It was just beautiful. I walked around. I don't think I sat in my seat the whole game. I just walked around. It was perfect. So I haven't been to a ton of major league stadiums. I've been to a lot of the minor leagues, a lot of spring training facilities, and I would say that one really surprised me. I didn't want to leave. So unfortunately, it's about 4 hours on the other coast, so I've gone back. But I would say there. Now, speaking of spring training, Tony, have you been to Fort Myers to see the new facility there, or not? Not quite yet.
I have been there. I haven't seen it since they did all of the renovations yet. I think the last time that I was down there was probably 2015. But I mean, spring training is, like you said, it's such a joy. The relaxed atmosphere, like if people really want to talk to professional players or get an autograph or something, go down there. And I would tell people, yeah, seeing the big club teams is really fun, but go to the back lots, go to the other minor league places and see those guys in the side lots doing their thing, because you're watching who's going to come up in another 3 years. You're watching those potential future all-stars, and no one's there.
Yes, and that's what it's about. Like, yes, it's great to see the name on the jersey, the big name, but all day long, I want to see somebody that I could be like, I saw so and so when they were playing for the single A, I don't know, Palm Bay Knuckleheads, whatever. That, like, to me,
Which
that's
is
more. Yeah, that's
a great name.
yeah. Let's make it happen. I know the mayor of Palm Bay. Let's make that happen. But
Yeah.
so, so one thing with spring training, which kind of is a little bit disappointing, but still go. So where I live was about 15 minutes from Space Coast Stadium, which was where the Nationals had their spring training. And they always had great attendance. Little by little, you heard rumblings that they were leaving because where they were located, the distance by bus was almost 2.5 hours for every team, no matter which way you slice it, except for one or two teams. So the players were continuing to grumble about they were tired of making that trip. And instead of just sending the minor league guys and one or two main guys, they kind of fed into it little by little. That went away. Then all of a sudden, the next closest stadium, Vero Beach, with the Dodgers, which was beautiful. I mean, you could sit on a bleacher 5 feet from the bench, the dugout, and tap the guy on the head if you want to. That started going away again, and then we saw the in Kissimmee, the Astros. They also went and shared a facility with the Nationals and the Braves and Disney, little by little. So now Port St. Lucie is about an hour away, but unfortunately, we were like, for me, I was like in the center. It was beautiful. I would go to so many games, and now it's like, unfortunately, they've all gone West Coast. So it's so I do try to get out to Mets spring training as much as I can, but I miss when I had that team like right there. Even though the Nationals weren't my team, it was just something about going to a game 15 minutes away. So your team is Minnesota, I'm assuming, but so how close are you to the stadium yourself, or?
If it wasn't so dark, I would kind of move my computer. On a good day, I can see basically the downtown Minneapolis, and if the Target Field lights are on, I can see it. So I would say about 2 miles away.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's exciting. I'm excited that I have a Dollar General by my house, and here you are. You got a stadium 5 seconds. That's amazing.
Yep.
So Michael, before I turn over to you and ask some final questions, I need to ask our guest, Tony. You have a wonderful record collection behind you. If you may, what would you say is your prize record there? You don't need to pull it out, and then tell me the most interesting concert you ever been to.
Ooh, I know the second part right away, and I have basically that first shelf, and that second shelf is the artist that I saw. They only started in the early 2010s, but they've released that much music. The name of the band is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
I love the name.
They're a rock band, but they kind of dabble in every genre. They've had a jazz record. They've had an all electronic record. They've had metal records and stuff like that. And I got to see them in Red Rocks. And
that had to be great.
They played for 3 hours, and it was just fantastic. And quite honestly, prized records, it might just be that I have all 25 of their records. That they've released 5 in a year, twice in their career. So it's hard keeping up with them, but at the same time, it's just, that you're going to get a couple records from them every year, and I just get really jazzed about that.
That is excellent. And how about just if somebody was to say, "What's your prize record?" Which one is it specifically? What would it be?
Hi. I would say, that is tough. I have another artist called Glassjaw, and they released one that was only 93 copies. And
wow.
What's strange about it is that it's technically 3 discs. The middle part is a 7-inch. Then there's an outer ring that's a 10-inch, and then there's an outer ring that's a 12-inch. So it's one album, but 3 pieces. it makes it really difficult to actually play on the turntable,
Right.
but it's an art piece and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have, for me, um, it's actually not a group. It's from a soundtrack of Rocky Horror Picture Show, the original. I still have that, which is so good. You know,
Yes.
which is so good for a variety of reasons. And if anybody is a Meatloaf fan, he's great in that. You know, and I've always been a Tim Curry person. Um, but a funny story I can tell you about seeing. Um, I've been to a few concerts, but I was about 12 years old, mid seven. No, I was older. I was about 14. Late 70s, Paramount Theater in New York. I had no business being there. Our dad was not aware that I went. We take the train. I went to the Paramount Theater to see the Ramones. That's all I'm
Wow.
saying. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, I think you might like that.
And
Was he
back
even
when they
mad though? Or-
Yes, back then when they were the Ramones.
yeah, when they were truly the Ramones, like
Yes, I mean Stevie GB days, like right prior to that, you know, it's just so great. Why is he going? What is that stuff? Don't worry about it, Redmond. Just enjoy the music. It's great. And it was wonderful. Loved it.
yeah,
You know, but things were different back then.
yeah.
So um has there been a stadium that or a ballpark you haven't gone to yet that you want to go to?
Um, Not yet because I've been to all of them, but
Mhm.
the one that I want to return to, and it feels weird saying it, is actually out in Oakland. It's kind of more out of just paying the final respects to them,
I
and
get it.
it we're not guaranteed many more days with it, so kind of want to just be able to take it in.
I've been to about 20 games there. Because seats were so cheap.
Yep.
Two, I like going to listen, I'm a Met fan, right? And so I had Shea Stadium. It was in Flushing for a reason. The place
Yep.
was a toilet, you know, but it was our toilet. I loved it. And
Hmm.
I would go to, first of all, Oakland Coliseum was a great place to see a Raider game. I've seen that too, but it was 2.5 hours door to door from my house. And so I went there, you know, hey, Tony, let's go to the game. You can always get a good seat. I enjoyed it.
Yep.
The foul territory, you've been there, is just tremendous.
Insane. It's like having another ballpark in fall.
Yes. Yeah, you tour those minor league fields. It's like having minor league fields in foul territory.
Yep.
It's so big.
And the fans too, so passionate.
Yeah.
Going out there for a game, especially. I wish I would have seen a playoff game out there because I can only imagine what that place is like when
Oh
it's
yeah.
just full and ravenous.
Yeah, listen, they had some great teams play there, you know, in the early 70s. So do you do what I do? I mean, I'm weird to begin with, but I like to sit in the worst seat one for like at least a half inning just to see what it's like.
Oh yeah, me especially. It's really fun to do when I have someone with me
Mhm.
because I did that when I was out in Atlanta at their new stadium. I have a buddy who lives down there, and I had already gotten the special commemorative baseball. I had already seen the view from the nice seats, and we were just kind of wandering about, and we ended up in the furthest seats up, out in uh, the right field side, actually in fall territory, all the way
I've
up.
been there. Yeah.
Just put your feet up, and no one's around there. We even did our own little podcast from out there. It was just like, it felt like you were spying on a baseball game, like a not whole ticket.
Oh, 100%. But didn't you feel weird that the other stadium still kind of looks new? And yeah, well, they play community college baseball there now or something.
Yep.
You know, I think Georgia Tech. I don't know who's playing. And I went there. I'm like, this still looks kind of new. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Yep. It's very weird, and even the same with Texas. I know that it's not a baseball stadium anymore, but the fact that it's right across the street and still used for like esports and other things, and it's like this is just odd.
Weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Michael.
So I'll end with this question. So you did your thing. You went from Fenway to Dodger Stadium. What is next for you? Like in terms of like your next, do you have yet like a next goal in terms of like what that road trip, maybe it doesn't have to be 2 in 1 game. Maybe it's just to see a whole series. What's your next road trip goal that's beyond just a game, you think?
That is a good question. I know that there's going to be some this year. Nothing crazy, but kind of like I said, just chasing those special commemorative baseballs, whichever ones pop up. As far as something that is unique or a little bit challenging, I definitely want to go see another baseball game in a foreign country. I wish it would have been Korea this year, but just didn't happen. So if I could do that, I would really like to see one. Maybe if they start playing any games in the Dominican or Puerto Rico again, really want to go down there.
Because the energy they bring, especially in Dominican for the World Baseball Classic, is
Yeah.
that's something special there.
That's also a good point. I haven't been to a World Baseball Classic game yet. I definitely want to hit that up, and I mean, baseball is going to be an Olympic sport again pretty soon.
That's right.
So,
Yes.
seeing that.
And Tony, just saying, if you're ever interested, I got a mini seasons subscription to the Boston Red Sox. You ever in the area, because you're season ticket holder, we can do batting practice on the Green Monster. Just saying, if you're ever in the area, I'll send it to you. Seriously.
Near and dear to my heart.
100%, 100%. Michael, sorry you can't go. No, Michael and I are gonna go on a different date. He's already working on that now.
Yeah, already working on that. Yeah.
Yep, because you got to do batting practice from the Green Monster. You got to do it.
Well, we could just do a live podcast all in person there.
I think that'd be dynamite. Let's do it. Done.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yes. Michael's like, yeah. Right now, Mike, I'm telling you, I know the face because he's my brother. He's already doing that spreadsheet you guys were both talking about in his mind.
I'm already navigating between tabs and trying to figure out some stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent.
So this has been excellent. We really enjoyed having you on, Tony, and I'm interested. We're going to continue to follow along with you on your just you doing what you do. And please, I encourage you to follow him on all his social media at Baseball Road Tripper. Some exciting things I know are in store. This was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon, and maybe it will be in Fenway for all we know. So, but until then, appreciate you joining on with us, everybody, and until we see you again around the ballpark.